Hey guys, I'm a meathead gamer, probably just like you. I understand the importance of playing Stellar Blade, but I also understand the importance of being in a squat rack. So I got the perfect programs for you. Hammerhead, Shogun, the Tenacity Strength Hypertrophy Method, all of these designed to get you bigger, to get you stronger, and to be like one of these characters on Stellar Blade that don't look like one of these ugly ass monsters. So hit me up at Tenacity Strong and get a copy. It will do nothing but help you achieve your physical goals, and you'll get better at your gaming goals. Because when you look good, you play good. All right? Y'all have a good one.
Streamcast.
Hello and welcome to the Streamcast. I am Blackamora and I'm joined by two amazing people over on my left. Please introduce yourself to people who might not know who you are from SleepySwan Studios.
Hello, I'm Chandler, one of the co-founders of SleepySwan Studios, and to my left is
Isabela. My name's Isabela. Again, co-founder of SleepySwan Studios and the studio's game designer.
Awesome. So we'll get into all of what goes into making a game, working for yourself, the highs and the challenges. But we want to take things all the way back to you as gamers. Do you remember your first ever game and console?
Yes, I'm not sure if it was my first ever game, but I remember distinctly playing one of the Winnie the Pooh games on the GameCube back in the very early 2000s. So, but that's one of my first memories of gaming.
My personal experience involved the Game Boy Color. I remember playing. What did I play? Game Boy Color and Sabrina, Teenage Witch. That was, growing up in rural Colombia, you didn't really get a lot of. You had your PS1s and whatnot, but like the Game Boy was like the easiest thing to get. So, Game Boy Color.
Yeah, I remember wanting a Game Boy Color really badly, but I think we had a PS1 in the house, so like our parents weren't overly indulgent to our desires. So Winnie the Pooh and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, those are very unique answers. I don't often get those as a first game. But this is very cool because like sometimes the first game can really shine a window as to what someone's interests are. And from your first games, I'd like to take it to your favorite games. These are, whether they're recent, whether they're callbacks, throwbacks. What are your top 5 games, each of you?
So from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I went into ranking TF2. Right, that might be a bit of like a basic answer, but it's a game that, it was my introduction to PC games. TF2 was my introduction to PC games and online multiplayer. So for me, it's one of my favorites. Then you've got things like Battle of Polytopia, which is a mobile game. You've got Project Zomboid, Not for Broadcast, and have I missed anything? Mini Ninjas. That's the one.
Right.
That was a Wii game.
Sweet.
And for me, I don't play Winnie the Pooh anymore.
We're waiting for that remake.
Still hoping. For me, I much prefer simulation and strategy games now. So likes of Kerbal Space Program, one of my all-time favorite games. I have thousands of hours on that game. And then grand strategy games like Hearts of Iron and Victoria 3. They're some of my more recent favorite games. And then also similar to Isabela, Team Fortress and Project Zomboid. We enjoy playing together. So
yeah, I feel like sometimes you can tell there's a theme with your favorite games and you just like a certain genre. We'll get into this more later, but do you feel like there was a moment where the light bulb went off when you were playing a game and you went, "Oh, I'd like to do this as a career"?
For me, I don't think it was triggered by a moment in a game specifically that I can think of anyway.
I think for me, the game that triggered that. I mean, for me, my interest in games is a bit. I didn't look at games and think I want to be a game designer, but there was one game, I think Outlast. The Outlast games, I'm a big fan of horror, but the Outlast games for me were like the one that gave me that kind of like life
Yeah.
moment for me. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's quite a tone shift from your first game and your favorite games.
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, it kind of opens up
Yeah.
that little things, and then you've got killing things in the really dark asylum, because why not, right?
That's true. That is...
Entryway, right?
How do you actually go from, just playing games to making the choices that get you into the games industry? What were your first jobs, and how did you navigate your way to the point where now you co-founded SleepySwan Studios together?
For me, the decision to go into games itself only came around when I was doing my A levels in college, and by that point I had already been programming for quite a few years, having been taught how to when I was younger by my granddad, essentially. So when I was looking at what to do next, I didn't want to just go onto a computer science course, and I thought, oh well, games, that might be fun, and essentially that's how I ended up doing a games course, and then I went back and actually did a computer science degree afterwards, because at the end of the day I am the programmer of the team, and that's what I always wanted to go into. So, but I had the knowledge. I wanted to get the knowledge for the other side of games, so I actually did art and animation in university as well, which wasn't as fun for me.
So for me, I didn't want to go into games first. So I grew up on games. So I say RuneScape, Adventure Quest, Dragon Quest. Those are the kind of games I grew up on. Outside of the ones that I mentioned. And for me, I was really interested in psychology around A levels, and I wanted to do psychology. Didn't get the grades, so I said, okay, I've got to do something. But I knew that I wanted at some point after doing psychology, if I got to do it, I wanted to apply that to games, right? So that was kind of like something I really knew, because to me games are applied psychology, and I was again really into that. And then because I didn't get the grades, no shame, I went through clearing to get into uni and did a course at Goldsmith University, which, by the way, very good course, to study computer science. Did not enjoy it. I mean, as in, like, how do I say, enjoyed the course was good, but I realized I wanted to do games, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And then I decided to do a master's in VR and AR. And at that point I was like, well, this is applied, this is a game. VR, AR, research, it's a game. That'll do. And then that led me to, well, because I graduated the year COVID happened. So
Oh, wow.
Yes. So so I got hit by all the lockdowns and everything, which is actually what led to us working together and meeting.
Okay.
I had also graduated from my master's during COVID, and then so we were obviously both looking for jobs at that point, and we ended up working at a hyper casual mobile game studio, and we were placed on the same team. There was a 6-month contract for us both, so it was a very hard finish that we knew was going to happen. But during that time, we'd sort of become friends, and we started doing game jams together in our spare time. And then from there,
we just basically kept in touch, kept doing game jams. Basically, decided after graduating from my VR course, which was a year after we'd met and everything, I managed to get myself on a Warner Brothers Discovery Access and Rocksteady program. And
wow.
Yes, so I don't know if you've heard of it, or know anything about it, by any chance.
No, I just know the brands that you mentioned. I don't know too much about the programs themselves.
Yeah, that's fine. Basically, we got put into teams of 5, art, design, audio, and QA, and we basically were allowed to play with the IP of Batman. And
Sick.
Yeah, I decided to make our team did a game based around, or pitch around Penguin.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'd like that.
yeah, I feel like we're allowed to say that we were able to work on that and actually keep it up. It's quite fortunate, in my opinion.
Awesome, yeah.
But because of that, I got an opportunity to work with somebody, and they need a programmer, and then we decided to work. Yeah, I got him in, work together.
Awesome.
And after that contract ended, we said, okay, well, let's try doing our own thing. This was like early this year, early 2024, and as you may know, the industry at the moment is a little bit turbulent, let's say.
Yeah,
for lack
that's
of
a
better
very nice
word.
word to use.
Yeah. We said, why not? Let's do our thing. And then upcoming to WASD Live, I turned to Chandler and I said, we're going to WASD. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah. He wasn't very happy about it at first.
Yeah, it was very fast because we hadn't been.
I'm sorry. That was very funny.
We had only just started working, and at the very start of the company, we had been kind of jumping between projects we wanted to work on, and so we didn't have anything like planned or really ready to show. I guess it did resolve that problem, and that she was like, "Oh, we're going to go to WASD in like 2 weeks. Now we need a game, so let's get working on that."
Okay, see, now you're what makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it did help because we were able to quickly put together something that we could show and see that, and it showed people were interested in it without us spending more time jumping between projects.
Yeah.
And now since then, we've been able to focus purely on that one project in order to get it ready for an actual release.
That's one of the things about working when you're your own boss, right? I mean, this is our first time, so it was. He mentioned we basically found ourselves going a little bit of a cycle of we started something, went halfway, found something we wanted to do, so we left it, did something else, and does that make sense? So we would just leave a lot of half-finished projects, and I was just that's fine and all, right? But I feel like WSD is coming up. Why not?
That's very interesting. But first of all, you mentioned clearing, and I do want to agree with you. There's nothing wrong with clearing. I want to destigmatize that here. Getting to uni in general is a very hard feat, and the fact that you achieved that, you should be very proud of yourself. You should pat yourself on the back. As long as you're making an honest living, I think there's no judgment, no looking down that should be ever involved. Everyone's got their own lives to live. Everyone's got to pay bills. It's a long rat race that we've got. So any victories, big or small, those should be celebrated and they shouldn't be used to deride. Going from that, a lot of these half projects, do you feel that because you were the ones leading the direction, do you feel that had caused some of the I guess shot in projects halfway and then going off with something else? Is that something you could have benefited with having maybe an external eye on, saying, oh, this is a really good idea, push on with this? Or do you feel like there was something else telling you that, hold on, maybe this project isn't the one for us, let's move on to something else? Was it more of planning or pivoting?
For me, I think it was just at least I think it was trying to find what we wanted to do with the company more than anything. We were trying things out, which led to a little bit of a back and forth between projects. But I think it's pretty standard with every kind of startup, where for a while you need to find your footing and really before you can really get down to whatever it is you're meant to be working on.
Yeah. I mean, when thinking back to the time that led to that decision of literally springing WASD, I could call it WASD because it's easier, on you. I remember thinking and when we were working on our projects, right, because we were really excited on the projects we were working on, and we still have plans on hopefully finishing them up after this one's in a better place. It was more kind of we didn't know what we were aiming for, so it's very easy to kind of think when you don't have a hard deadline, you're kind of left oh I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. I've got time. But then you realize half the year's gone by, you're with nothing to show for it. We didn't spend half the year, but it's very easy.
It's a good quarter of a year, though.
It was.
Yeah.
So, like, time was passing, and I was just like looking around, thinking like, we have nothing to show for it at the moment, and I don't think it's going to get any better. So we need to try. Let's pick a project, right? Because we picked a project that we had previously done, like prototype briefly. We were like, let's grab this, let's see what people think, and if people don't like it, right, then we just abandon it, or we see what the issue is. Because that, in my opinion, is a much better approach of dealing with, like, that stagnation, than spending, a whole year of your life, 2 years, 3 years, however long, and then finding out actually people really don't like your game.
That's fair. That's a very fair point.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much the projects themselves, because like the whole game jumping. Like, going back to the question, actually, because I just realized what the question was. Sorry.
It's okay.
Full disclosure here, I have ADHD, so my brain will jump from things quite quickly, which that then leads to the project thing. I'll start something, and then my brain will stop thinking about another game, and I'm like, oh, we'll finish this one later. And then the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you being so honest and candid. That's a very real thing, and it's not something to feel any type of way about. It's truth. It's your life, and it's something that you've had to operate with in terms of sticking with this project 1 minute to close. And I feel that's quite apt, because you kind of gave yourself 2 weeks to come up with a project, and you came up with this rushing game. So why don't you tell us a little bit about 1 minute to close at WASD, or WASD, however you want to say it, and how your experience was going to the show floor.
So for 1 minute to close, the inspiration came from Isabela's time in retail, like herself as an employee, obviously. And see, I'm not.
You're telling me to take
And
it.
No, you got this. You're right.
In 1 minute to close, you play as the customers that I think a lot of retail workers can relate to. In that they enter just before the store closes, to and they're like, oh, I just need to get a couple of bits, I won't be long.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 minute to close kind of takes that sort of to the extreme. You enter 1 minute before closing, and then you decide to stay, and you just really want to do your shopping, so you stay after closing.
Right.
And the staff just want to go home, and they are trying to kick you out so they can close the shop for the night and then go home. Cool. So they'll chase you down, and you just keep sneaking back in. You really want that bread or whatever you're after.
Okay, so I can admit I have been that customer a few times, and that's something I'm working on. I can understand how that could be annoying, because I've been on the other side as well in retail, and you're just like, please just leave. And it's always this one thing. I know what I want. It's just one thing, and then you can see them putting things back on the shelves, and it's just like, come on, man. So that's very interesting that you've taken that and gamified it, and I feel that's a very good thing to do. I feel like certain elements of just everyday life can be gamified, and it's very relatable. So what kind of experience or feedback did you receive from people who came by, walked past, played your game, spoke to you? What were the the big takeaways?
On our first day, we were absolutely losing our minds. We were kind of thinking, like, what have we done? Because out of everybody there, and I'm sure there will be pictures, we were the only ones that had no art back, like no art. It was literally just name. It was bare. And everybody around us was, everybody else was set up. They had their advertising, they had their game, it was polished. And then there we were, with our little 2-week game. Like we'd spoken to some devs previously, going into the venue, and we were just like, yeah, the game took us 2 weeks, and they'd be like, just what, like 2 weeks? Like, that's insane, right? And we were just absolutely freaking out, because we thought we spent all this time, we spent money, we're not going to get it back. I mean, that was a risk we were going to get anyway, but it just kind of like dawned on us the reality of the situation, what I put us into. And then we started getting people coming through, and everybody that did, because not every game's going to be for everybody, right? But for the people that did like that kind of like stealth style genre, I feel like the majority of people, if not all, really, really liked it. And I feel like I can class people in two groups, right? There were the people that said, "Yep, I know exactly what this game is about because they worked on the retail side," or
Yeah.
"Yep, I've been that customer." Like it was one or the other. But either way, like both groups really enjoyed it. They had a lot of fun, and that I feel, this being our first game and everything, it was overwhelming, and it was made me like, as a designer, right? Again, freaking out at the beginning, thinking like, "Oh my goodness, what have I done?" It made me really happy being able to see that people actually liked the premise, the game. There were bugs. Again, it's a 2-week game. What game isn't going to have bugs?
Yeah.
But what it didn't detract from the experience, and I'm happy that people were quite forgiving in that regard. They were like, "Yeah, it's okay, We were just like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." But also, it was kind of like, because when I pitched the game to Chandler, because the game's also heavily inspired from games like Hello Neighbor, and Hello Neighbor for me was a game that I remember watching the big YouTubers play back in 2015, 2014, around that time, when it was big. And that kind of self-learning AI, kind of, that you don't know where the guy's going to come because he learns and he just adjusts his movements. I really like that. And since the fall of Hello Neighbor, at least the first one, I'm not entirely sure how the second one's doing, I'd not seen a game that did that. And when I pitched that to Chandler, he was really excited about it, but we were kind of concerned again, did Hello Neighbor, the fall of Hello Neighbor, was it because of that AI model, like that, the way the character behaved, or was it something else? And did we just kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, sort of, there was that kind of question of, we're not entirely too sure if it's going to work or not. But luckily, based on the reception, unless people were lying, but I doubt it. I like to think they weren't. They really liked it, especially set in a supermarket where, you can kind of go around and avoid them. It was an actual escape.
If you were that customer, what type of store would you sneak into with the confidence that you'd be able to make it out on time with all the items you want to buy?
As you were asking your question, I was thinking IKEA, and then you said on time, and I said absolutely not on IKEA.
If it was one where you have to hide from the staff, definitely IKEA. They'd never find you.
I don't know. It's kind of hard.
Something small, like the Tesco.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to say a supermarket is going to be the safe answer. Sainsbury's, Tesco, only because they label their stuff, so I'll be able to pinpoint exactly what I need. But unless they did a last minute swap and they forgot to change the sign, in which case I'd kind of be, a game store.
Okay.
A game store, because I would just go in and know exactly what game I'm looking for, and I just once I found it, boom, out.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Chandler?
I have no idea either. I guess I'm gonna have to go with just one of the small kind of supermarkets, like Tesco Express or whatever it is, the small ones where because I'm not very good at finding things anyway, so I want to limit the search radius essentially in order to get out on time.
Yeah.
That's fair. I like that you've both thought about it. I wish I didn't say that on time thing now, because I really do want to see what you would have come out with in IKEA in the structure of your game, where you have to sneak around and you use stealth to avoid getting caught. I would like to know what you would put in your shopping trolley in IKEA. That's quite an interesting one.
I just need another Klax unit,
Yeah.
and it couldn't wait till tomorrow.
Has to be today. You never know.
It has to be today. It has to be that very specific shop. Otherwise, no dice. Yeah.
It's good. Hearing about all of this, pushing yourself to WASD and pushing yourself to at least come up with an early model of the game. It feels like imposing that deadline on yourselves has made yourself very efficient and hardworking. How is development on 1 Minute to Close going now? And where are you at with the game?
Well,
Well.
so the original prototype that we showcased at WASD was built with Unity, and after we finished there, because it was a prototype, the project was messy, and kind of some parts were just kind of thrown together. So we decided to restart from scratch. We spent a few days there deciding the best way to go about that and whether we should switch engine, which we actually ended up doing. So we're now using the Godot engine, which is, if you've not heard of it, it's a relatively new open source engine. And so development in that it's gone well.
It's gone a lot slower.
Yeah, it's gone slower.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But that's kind of a natural consequence of changing engine, because we'd never worked in Godot before. So obviously a lot of time was spent like relearning it. Well, relearning what in Unity would have done in like 2 minutes. It's been going well. I think it was the correct thing to do for our game, because there's things in Godot that aren't necessarily available in Unity that we're thinking like, oh, okay, we can take advantage of this and actually have players use these features. As for the actual the content itself, we're almost there for that Godot build. Not necessarily the final build itself, but we're almost in a position where we can showcase what we have with that. If that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah.
You're obviously taking on board what people asked and suggested, because again, 2 weeks is not enough time to implement everything you had in mind. But at least now it's been about a month, 2 months now, going into 3.
Yes, I believe it's 2 and a bit.
Yeah, so improvements to map layout, for example, to the AI, all that stuff. It's been going good.
Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that. It can't be easy switching the entire engine of your game. So it seems like you've made, a very good decision moving from Unity. And I do want to know, in terms of because you are in the games industry now, full on, what's your favorite part about the games industry? Is it the in-person get-together conventions where you get to meet with fellow developers and consumers alike, or is it another aspect?
That's an interesting question. Given being that we're in an independent studio, it's you miss out. You don't get it's a different experience to being independent than part of one of the big studios. I'd say one of I guess it has been fun being able to go to the different conventions and showing the game off and meeting people who are either in a similar position to us, as in terms of being an independent developer as well, or being a consumer that is that we can learn from and develop our game towards the people who are going to be playing it, rather than the people at the top of the corporate ladder on in the big companies.
Yeah, for me, I would say it's being able to go, because Chandler pretty much summarized what it's like to be independent. But I guess from a general point of view, for me, it's like being able to go to these conventions, being able to talk to other developers, and as a designer, being able to see people firsthand play our game, not my game, our game, and see our ideas actually being they came to fruition, and the intention we wanted behind them are actually being carried across to the player. And that for me is really exciting. If your game's not out there, people can think, if you go to people and go, oh, I make games, they're like, oh really, you make games? What games do I know about that you've made? And
right, yeah.
Oh, do I have to have a game out there for me to be able to tell you that I make games? You know, being able to go to these conventions is kind of like I've made it. Feels to me it's like I've made it. Like this, you know, I am equal to everybody around me now, to both consumer and to other students and stuff alike. Because they can't say anything. They can't say, "Have you put a game out?" It's like, no, yeah, we have. It's 1 minute to close. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you're definitely equals. Like the games industry is very vast, and I feel that's there's still quite a bit of understanding for maybe non-gamers to understand. Like when someone says I make games, and then they respond, "Oh, what games have you made?" That already that's like that's kind of weird, because like if someone says, "Oh, I'm a director," what have you made? Like it's you know like have you made anything that I know? You didn't make Titanic. Like there's a real plethora of games and sizes, and that's exactly what we are trying to do here, trying to share the spotlight and discover games that you might not know otherwise. We are looking for these unique stories made by smaller teams who are putting their heart and soul into these games, like 1 Minute to Close, and that's really what we're trying to focus on. And you are equal, like being able to make it to these WASD and who else, these other conventions like EGX and Comic-Con and Gamescom and all of that. Those are all validating points. What are your greatest accomplishments as a gamer and as a developer?
I don't know the answer to that. I should, but I don't. I think this, being able to found SleepySwan Studios, being able to showcase 1 Minute to Close, that to me at the moment is like one of my proudest moments. Growing up, being a girl and everything, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, you want to be doctor, doing other stuff," and then I'd be like, "No, I want to do games," right? In a lot of cultures, I'm Colombian, so for us, it's like going into games, it's outlandish, it's ridiculous. Being able to say, I am not doing games is pretty, I don't know, pretty proud of that.
I would agree with the founding of the company and everything, and 1 Minute to Close has been a very big accomplishment for us. And it's something that I've wanted to do. I founding a company, running a company, whatever, it's something I know I've wanted to do for a while, since I was quite young. Although I feel like that's quite a common thing, but to actually have been able to achieve it quite an early stage as well of our careers, I'd say is a big achievement. It's quite a competitive industry for all disciplines. When I was studying, people say, "Oh, programmers, you'll get a job instantly." Everyone, always wants programmers, but it's just not necessarily the case, because at that point, but in a few years when I actually finished university, the industry had shifted quite a bit. I know it's already become quite large, and then obviously COVID hit, and the industry started shrinking again when restrictions were lifted, and we're in the mess we're in now. So that was a bit of a tangent. And for the gaming one, it's quite a tough thing to think about. I do have 1,460 hours in Kerbal Space Program.
Yeah, he wasn't lying about the hours. Like I've seen them. I've seen it.
And I remember distinctly saying, I hope to get to 1,000 before I get bored of playing. Although I also have ADHD, and for me with gaming, it comes in waves. It'll be like I play this game, but only ever play this game for like a month, and I don't touch anything else. But then I won't want to see it again for a year. So
I get that.
And Kerbal is one of those games that I keep going back to, but then I have to take a long time away from it afterwards. So those hours have built up slowly, but I remember reaching 1,000 and then thinking, I want to be able to reach 1,500 before KSP 2 comes out, because at that point KSP 2 had been announced. And I didn't quite make it, but also didn't buy KSP 2 in the end. So I suppose it didn't really make much. And I'm going to end up going back to KSP anyway instead of the second one. So it didn't make much of a difference. There's some other games that I've played that I've just wanted to be able to finish. Like story games, quite difficult for me. So the ones of those I have completed even. Have been quite an achievement.
Yeah, I think I know now what achievement as a gamer. I feel like for me, it's being able to have found. I love horror, love it to bits, hate playing it. Right, love making it, love watching it, hate playing it. And I think it's being able to have found a system that works for me whenever I play horror games, and that involves grabbing whatever weapon I have and then just wildly going in there, guns are blazing. Like I remember playing Prey. Yeah, I was playing Prey, and I just went in there. Like I did not care. I was just shooting everything and anything I saw. And like the person that was watching at the time, he was just like, "What are you doing? It's supposed to be a stealth game." I was like, "No, not anymore. Not anymore."
The stealth is optional.
The same with Alien Isolation. Unfortunately, it didn't last that long with that one. But that for me, being able to overcome my fear of playing horror games by just going in the guns and blazing, it's I don't know. I find it to be a pretty good achievement on my end. Like, yeah.
That's dope. I'm glad you could both come up with amazing answers for both as a gamer and as a developer. So when it comes to 1 minute to close, is there a potential release window that you are looking at this point in time, or are you still too early in development? And if that's the case, when would you like for this game to be released?
So we do have a potential release window, which we're currently hoping to release it around the end of October. So around the time of EGX, essentially. I think our ideal window would be during EGX, so we can sort of have people playing it where we can be, we've just released and it's ready to, you can go and play it now as well. So I think that's our
ideal
goal.
Yeah.
But it's not 100% locked in yet. It's just
that would be ideal.
Yeah. It's either EGX or immediately after. That's the kind of like time frame we're giving ourselves.
So after 1 minute to close, is there a desire to make more games, or are you more so looking to just focus on this project as is, and then if there are some maintenance or some fixes that need to be applied, is that going to be your immediate focus, or is it going to be more, okay, we've done this project, let's get on to one of those earlier unfinished ones?
When we release 1 minute to close, and I think this goes for every developer really, there should always be a plan to fix bugs and stuff if they arise. You should always, and even have new content. That's what we plan to do. Obviously,
Jesus, that was loud.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
That's all right.
First, right? Who would have thunk?
Sorry, Chandler.
Yeah. So, obviously, in terms of updates for content, it does depend on the reception of the game as well, because otherwise we're just wasting time, essentially. But for bug fixing, I think that's regardless of perception, if there's bugs, they should be addressed, because that's a kind of a duty of care really towards your games. And if you didn't do that, then it seems
something's gone wrong there.
But we also plan to make new games. To answer the actual question, we do plan to make different projects, but potentially going back to earlier projects, and we already have some
new ones already lined up,
some ideas
all right
that we can make. So there's definitely plans for other future games too.
Yeah, it's quite funny because every now and then I'll just start like messaging Chandler, like just spamming him. He's like, Chandler, I've got an idea, and he's like, oh no. Okay. What is it? And I'm just like, and I start throwing ideas. He's like, okay, that's great. Put it in the book. Like, actually write it down somewhere, because I often I mentioned I'll come up with stuff and then I'll just because we're so busy with 1 minute to close, it's like we don't have time for it at the moment. But it's ideas and stuff that we want to do that, work on in the future. And hopefully we do get to actually bring those games as well to life very good as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you work in retail, there's a lot of stories you have to tell.
I can imagine. I can completely relate to you, Isabella, being the idea person. And, as soon as I'm like to the rest of the Streamcast, hey, I got an idea. I could just see, everyone's lighting up a cigarette, they're breathing heavy. It's like, oh, not again. But I can also relate to your advice, Chandler. I think it's very good to have your ideas written down, because some people are, really encyclopedic with how they can retain information and, retain their ideas and stuff. But I know for me, it's just,
Yeah.
I'll forget very quickly. And then, they'll ask me, what was that idea? I don't know. So,
Same.
what is one piece of advice you'd give to anyone who's watching this, listening to this, and going, what? That's really inspiring that, they went to a showcase and in 2 weeks they put out a game that people were impressed with. They really are invested in this story. What kind of advice would you give to any aspiring developer, designer, programmer to, continue to or to go on to make their own game?
I very much following the veil of what we did. Don't be afraid to get your game out there. Like, don't costs aside, right? Because it's easy to say, just put your game out there, go to WASD, go to EGX, right? They're expensive, but if you can afford it, and you're thinking, I don't know if my game is going to be good enough, it's better to pay that money and then find out really early on if your game is going to, if what you have in mind is going to work or not, than spend, like I mentioned before, 2 months, years of your life on a project that actually, you find is either in development hell or people don't like. You know what I mean? It's like, don't be afraid, and also don't be afraid to fail and fail early, because time is your most valuable asset.
If you're thinking of making a game, obviously, and one big thing I think for a lot of people is thinking, oh well, I don't have the funding for it, so I can't possibly do it, and that's something that I guess we did bump against for a while, but we're doing the creation, the work we're doing on the game is only part of our work life at the moment, and we're working part-time jobs or other contracts in order to actually fund it. So don't put off starting your own project based upon the idea of like, oh, I don't have the money to work on it full time. You don't need to. Just start, work on it when you can, more than anything else. Like, that came out slightly wrong, but work on it more than anything else, rather than thinking I need to wait till I have the money to be able to do it full time.
Yeah. Can I just add one more piece of advice? I feel like it's very important.
Yeah.
If you decide to go down the game making route, as in you want to make a game, you want to put it out there and start your own thing, just because it's a game doesn't make it any less of a business. And I feel like a lot of people have this idea that just because it's a game, it's all rainbows and sunshines and it's like easy. It's not. It's hard work, and people need to remember that it's a business ultimately, and they need to treat it as such. That will hopefully help a lot of people not fall into the same, pitfalls of like, oh, it's a game, it'll be an immediate success because everybody plays games. Like, no. I personally feel like a lot of people fail early on is because they don't realize it's a business, right?
Yeah.
As much as anything else.
Yeah, and sorry again to build on that as well. Keep your first project simple, small. Not necessarily simple, obviously, but keep them small. Don't think, oh, my first project's going to be, the next grand MMO that's going to take me 10 years to make. Make something that you could know you can get done in a reasonable time frame. I'm not going to give any specific time frames. That's up to everyone really themselves. But don't think. But if you spend 10 years on it, That's obviously an extreme example, but there has been examples of 5 years, for example. You're only setting yourself up for potential disaster or upset because you've spent so much time, but then it's not being received as, and you end up in a negative net loss because obviously you've spent so much time and money on that project.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of advice, is to keep it when you're starting out.
It doesn't scare anybody or anything. It's just kind of like the realities, and the games being such a lucrative like business, and like, you know, people always look at the arts and they think, oh, that's easy, I can do that. You can, but you just have to be realistic about it and put the work in. That's all.
Yeah, multiple gems from both of you. Yeah, that's really, really good advice. So as we wrap up, if there was one piece of knowledge that you could have had before you started SleepySwan Studios, what would that be?
I've got a couple of things, but I don't know if they necessarily apply. I mean, for me, at the moment, the biggest thing is time. Time doesn't wait for anybody. Time's flying, right? And there's only so many hours in a day that you can work. And I think the biggest thing is like, it's okay to fail. I know I said it earlier, like, you know, don't be afraid to fail early and whatever. But it's like, when we went into this at the beginning, it's kind of like, you know, ideas of like, you know, we're going to make it, everything's going to be great. But it's like, it's okay to fail. Not that I was saying we will. That's not what I'm saying, right? But it's like, you know, you go into this thinking big ideas, but you kind of forget the bits like there's also possibility. And that is always kind of like ring behind you, like at the back of your head. It's like, yeah, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. It's like, if I could go back and, you know, speak to myself, it's like, it's okay to fail. It's not the end of the world. And if that happens, again, which it won't, fingers crossed, like, don't stress so much about it during the development of your game. Just focus on what you've got now, right? Because every second you're spending stressed about possible failure, you're essentially taking time away from being able to focus and just put the work that needs to be done into the game.
It lends itself to what we were saying with keeping the time you spend on it, the time span on that game, on the money spent, like, low, because then, you know, you can always restart on another project. Whereas if you've spent lots of money or lots of time, you're going to feel less inclined to try again. But for knowledge going into something I wish I'd known, having started out straight in Godot would have been useful, and that's something we did learn along the way.
Yeah.
Godot is actually a very powerful engine, and with some features that not even Unity and Unreal have. But, I mean, on the flip side, it also does lack a few things that those two have. But it's because it's community driven, in that it's open source. It has features that other devs have wanted as well.
Okay.
It means you get features that are more likely something that you're going to need too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that would be, wishing we had started with Godot straight away would have been useful.
Yeah. I just want to kind of like point out real quick, we're not sponsored or anything by Godot. We just really like Godot.
No, that's completely fair. I mean, I feel like even gamers are aware of, you know, Unity and Unreal, so other engines don't really get the same praise. So I think it's quite amazing that, you know, you're able to sing the praises of this other engine and know so much about it. I think it's great. We won't approach them for any payment or anything. But you never know. So as we close up this episode, thank you so much for your time, for being so generous. And I would really like you to just tell the people how they can support you, even if that's something as small as following you on Twitter, wishlisting your game on Steam. What ways can people support you? And 1 minute to close.
So, like you mentioned, pretty much, basically just wishlisting on Steam, following us on Instagram. We're known as SleepySwan Studios on Instagram, and maybe even also following us, like joining the Discord server. That would also be pretty helpful. We're trying to build a community, so, you know, people that like game and all that stuff. So, yeah.
And obviously wishlist us on Steam. We do have a Steam page up for 1 Minute to Close.
I'm sure that 1 Minute to Close is going to do very well. It seems like a very nice game where people have, given you a lot of positive feedback, including one of our own members. So yeah, we're quite excited for this game to launch. And make sure, whether you are watching on YouTube or Spotify, that you follow SleepySwan Studios on Instagram and wishlist 1 Minute to Close on Steam, because those are very important metrics. And you can also follow and support the Streamcast in various ways with links all in the description. But I want to once again thank Chandler and Isabella for their time, for their generosity and honesty. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.